In Islam, being soft is a noble trait. The Prophet Muhammad was described as gentle, merciful, and kind in his dealings with people. However, there's a very important distinction that must be understood. Being soft is not the same as being weak. Unfortunately, many women today confuse the two. They believe that remaining silent in the face of injustice, tolerating emotional manipulation, or constantly compromising their values is a sign of patience, humility, or good character. But that's not what Islam teaches. A soft character is one that is kind, respectful, and gentle in speech and action, but never at the cost of truth or personal dignity. A woman who is soft in her approach can still be firm in her beliefs. She can be calm in tone, but strong in principle. Strength and softness are not opposites. In fact, they should go hand in hand. The Prophet was the most gentle of people, yet he never allowed himself to be humiliated or his values to be compromised. Likewise, Muslim women are not expected to let others step on them in the name of being soft. A woman should never feel obligated to stay quiet when her boundaries are being crossed. She should not accept disrespect simply because she wants to keep the peace. Allah has not asked women to be passive. Rather, He has honored them with intelligence, dignity, and the ability to speak up with wisdom. Some sisters keep absorbing pain thinking it's part of being a good Muslim, but Islam teaches balance. Patience does not mean being silent in the face of continuous harm. Patience is to endure hardship with trust in Allah while also using the means He has given you to protect yourself. There is a reason why Allah has given every believer, man or woman, akul, intellect, heart, and dignity. Islam doesn't ask women to hand these over in order to please others. A soft woman should also be a strong woman, a woman who knows when to be gentle and when to say enough. A woman who smiles with grace, but who can also raise her voice when justice is being denied. A woman who offers love, but not at the cost of her soul. The best examples from Islamic history, from Khadija R.A. to Fatima R.A. to Aisha, show women who were soft, loving, and feminine, yet powerful, confident, and intelligent. They spoke with purpose, acted with strength, and lived with clarity. They didn't let people take advantage of them in the name of kindness. They had strong identities rooted in their faith. So stop thinking that letting people walk over you is Islamic behavior. Stop thinking that always saying yes is righteous. Islam calls you to be merciful, yes, but also just dignified and self-respecting. Being soft should never mean being silent when your worth is being diminished. True softness is having a heart that forgives, but a mind that does not allow repetition of harm. Firmness in faith and character is one of the most beautiful qualities a Muslim woman can possess. In a world that constantly tries to change our values and distort our understanding of what strength means, Islam teaches us that real strength lies in remaining steadfast upon the truth. A woman who is firm in her deen is not someone who is arrogant or harsh, but someone who knows what she believes, why she believes it, and doesn't allow the opinions of people to shake her. She is not moved by trends, peer pressure, or the fear of being disliked. Her compass is the Quran and Sunnah, not the approval of society. Today, many women are made to feel that if they are too practicing, too covered, too modest, too principled, they are backward or unrelatable. But the reality is, the more a woman holds tightly to her deen, the more honored she becomes in the eyes of Allah. The Prophet A said that Islam began as something strange and will return to being strange. So give glad tidings to the strangers. A firm woman may be seen as strange in her environment, but she is not weak. She is holding a mountain on her shoulders with grace. Firmness is about having boundaries that are rooted in faith. It means when everyone around you is compromising, you stay grounded. When others mock your values, you respond with wisdom, not with compromise. A firm woman doesn't lower her standards to be accepted. She doesn't abandon prayer because she's at a gathering. She doesn't loosen her hijab to feel beautiful in the eyes of people. She doesn't entertain relationships that displease Allah just to feel wanted. Her connection with Allah is stronger than any desire for approval from people. This kind of strength is not always loud. It's not always visible. Sometimes it's the quiet refusal to follow the crowd. Sometimes it's the lonely walk to the masjid when others are sleeping. Sometimes it's the tears she hides because she's battling temptation but choosing Allah every single time. That is strength. That is firmness. And Allah loves the believers who remain firm when tested. He says in the Quran, "O you who believe, if you support the cause of Allah, He will support you and plant your feet firmly." Surah Muhammad 4:7-7. A woman of firm character knows when to speak and when to remain silent. She knows that her worth doesn't lie in being liked by everyone, but in being true to her Creator. She is not stubborn, but she is principled. She is not harsh, but she is unshakable. And when she walks with that confidence rooted in faith, she becomes a force of goodness for her family, for her community, and for the Ummah. The world may call her strict, but Allah calls her beloved. Her firmness is her beauty, and her strength is her shield. Many women struggle with saying no, fearing they'll come off as rude, arrogant, or unkind. They think that always agreeing, always being available, and always saying yes is what makes them good Muslims or good people. But Islam teaches us the importance of balance. Being good does not mean being taken advantage of. Being kind does not mean sacrificing your emotional, mental, and spiritual health to please others. In fact, being able to say no with wisdom, grace, and confidence is a sign of maturity and strength, not rudeness. The Prophet Muhammad was the most generous and loving human being, yet he had boundaries. He didn't say yes to everything. He didn't accept every request or tolerate every behavior. Sometimes he said no, clearly and firmly, even to those closest to him. Why? Because he operated from a place of purpose and discipline. He knew when something was not right, when it would lead to harm, or when it simply wasn't appropriate. Likewise, a believing woman must develop the ability to say no when something contradicts her values, exhausts her energy, or disrupts her focus on what matters, there is a graceful way to decline. Saying no doesn't need to be harsh or cold. You don't have to argue, over, explain, or feel guilty. You simply need to know what your priorities are and protect them. When someone asks you to do something that compromises your time, your deen, your responsibilities, or your well-being, it is perfectly acceptable to say, I'm not able to do that, or I appreciate it, but I'll have to pass. That's not arrogance, that's wisdom. Too often, women are raised to believe that their value lies in how much they do for others. So they stretch themselves thin, overcommit, and drain themselves emotionally, trying to be everything for everyone. But that's not sustainable, nor is it Islamic. Allah does not expect you to burn yourself out to earn the approval of people. He expects you to live with intention, balance, and clarity. That includes knowing your limits and communicating them. Learning to say no also builds self-respect. When you say yes out of guilt, fear, or pressure, you slowly lose respect for yourself, and others begin to lose it too. People will continue to push your limits if you never draw the line. But when you start valuing your time, your energy, and your principles, others begin to respect you more. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow and what you refuse. In the end, your goal is not to be known as the woman who never says no. Your goal is to be the woman who knows what matters, who gives with a sincere heart, but who also guards her heart, time, and purpose with strength. Islam empowers you to say yes when it's right, and no when it's necessary, and both can be done with beauty and dignity. One of the most misunderstood forms of patience among women today is the idea that they must quietly tolerate emotional abuse in order to be righteous or pious. Many women are taught, directly or indirectly, that enduring emotional pain, manipulation, and disrespect is a sign of strength or sabr. But Islam does not ask anyone, man or woman, to accept mistreatment as a way of life. Islam gave women dignity, protection, and the right to live with peace. Allah is not pleased when His servant suffers silently under abuse, thinking that silence equals virtue. Emotional abuse can take many forms: constant criticism, gaslighting, humiliation, threats, or being made to feel worthless. It might come from a spouse, a parent, a sibling, or even so-called friends. And because it doesn't leave physical marks, many women ignore it or try to normalize it. But emotional wounds cut deep. They drain your iman, disturb your sleep, make you doubt your self-worth, and affect your connection with Allah. A woman who is constantly being put down, ignored, or manipulated is not in a healthy environment, and Islam never obliges her to stay in such situations for the sake of preserving the image of being patient. The Prophet Muhammad never approved of injustice in any form. He taught us that a Muslim should never allow themselves to be oppressed, nor should they oppress others. In one narration, the Prophet said, help your brother whether he is an oppressor or is oppressed. When the companions asked how to help an oppressor, he replied, this stopping him from oppressing. This hadith applies to women too. If someone is abusing you emotionally, you are not helping them by remaining silent. You are enabling their sin. By speaking up or setting boundaries, you are actually fulfilling a moral and spiritual duty. Allah gave women a voice for a reason. You are not weak if you speak up for yourself. You are not sinful if you walk away from someone who continuously damages your mental and emotional health. Islam doesn't expect you to break under emotional pain in the name of loyalty. You are allowed to seek help, to get counseling, to involve elders, and in severe cases, even separate from those who refuse to reform. Your peace matters. Your dignity matters. Allah sees what you carry in your heart, and He knows when your patience has turned into silent suffering. True sabr isn't about letting someone hurt you repeatedly. True sabr is choosing what pleases Allah, even when it's hard. And sometimes what pleases Allah is having the courage to protect the soul He entrusted you with. You are not responsible for changing the hearts of those who mistreat you, but you are responsible for protecting yourself from harm. Emotional abuse is real, and Islam does not ignore it. The Deen of mercy does not ask you to stay where you are consistently belittled. Instead, asks you to rise with wisdom, seek support, and hold firm to your worth as a servant of Allah. Raising your standards is not arrogance. It is self-respect. Many women lower their expectations in relationships, friendships, and even in how they are treated in society because they fear being alone or misunderstood. But Islam never asks a woman to accept less than what she deserves. Allah created women with dignity and strength. When you know your worth, you stop settling for behavior, attention, or treatment that goes against your values or your peace of mind. You stop allowing people to have easy access to your heart when they do not honor it. A woman with high standards is not someone who is demanding in a worldly sense. She is someone who recognizes what Allah has given her. She knows her worth as a servant of Allah, as someone who obeys Him, guards her modesty, protects her tongue, and worships with sincerity. That kind of woman does not beg for love. She does not chase validation. She does not allow herself to be a convenience for others, only called upon when needed. Instead, she builds herself spiritually, emotionally, and mentally, and she surrounds herself with people who uplift her, not those who drain her. Some women confuse humility with accepting poor treatment. They think being forgiving means tolerating consistent disrespect. But Islam teaches that the believer is not stung from the same hole twice. That means once someone shows you a pattern of behavior that harms you, it is not your duty to keep giving them chances while they refuse to change. It is your right and your responsibility to distance yourself from environments that bring down your self-worth. Allah does not want His believing servant to live in a cycle of emotional struggle caused by people who do not fear Him. You raise your standards when you start living intentionally. You stop entertaining conversations that are purposeless. You stop being emotionally available to people who are inconsistent. You stop dressing, speaking, or acting in ways just to gain attention. You become more focused on pleasing Allah than pleasing people. And as you do that, you attract people who respect your presence, your silence, your boundaries, and your lifestyle. You teach the world how to treat you by the standards you set and enforce. Even in marriage, Islam encourages compatibility, honor, and mutual respect. A woman should never feel pressured to accept a proposal just because of age, culture, or fear. She should raise her standard by choosing a man of character, deen, and sincerity, someone who lifts her toward Jannah, not someone who pulls her into pain. The same goes for friendships. Being around people who remind you of your purpose is better than being surrounded by crowds who make you forget your value. When you raise your standards, some people will call you too picky, or too religious, or too difficult. Let them. Your goal isn't to be accepted by everyone. Your goal is to be accepted by Allah. And Allah never lowers the rank of those who honor the soul He gifted them. A strong Muslim woman is not one who is loud, aggressive, or harsh, nor is she someone who is quiet to the point of being invisible and unheard. True strength in a woman is found in balance, the ability to be soft-hearted yet strong-minded. Islam does not demand women to be emotionless or overly rigid. In fact, the most beloved women in our history were those who combined gentleness with wisdom, compassion with boundaries, and love with firmness in principle. The softness of a woman is a beautiful trait. It is her nurturing nature, her warmth, her empathy, and her ability to bring peace into a home and comfort to those around her. But when that softness is not protected by inner strength, it can be misused, taken for granted, and drained by people who do not value it. That's why Islam encourages both qualities, mercy and might. Allah is Al-Rahman, the most merciful, but He is also Al-Aziz, the most powerful. These two attributes are not contradictions, they complete each other. In the same way, a believing woman is meant to embody balance. Being soft doesn't mean you say yes to everything. It doesn't mean you accept disrespect, tolerate injustice, or give your energy away to people who bring no goodness into your life. A soft woman with no strength will be walked over, taken advantage of, and slowly broken. But a soft woman with strength will be kind without being manipulated, patient without being silent, in the face of harm, and loving without losing herself. She knows when to give and when to walk away. She knows when to forgive and when to draw the line. Her softness is a choice, not a weakness. We often hear the phrase, be like Khadija Ra'e, and rightly so. She was gentle, loyal, and full of love, but she was also incredibly strong. She supported the Prophet during his hardest years, ran a successful business, and never compromised her character. Aisha Ray was deeply knowledgeable, expressive, and emotionally connected. Yet she was fearless, opinionated, and intellectually sharp. These are the examples of balance that Islam teaches. They were not women who were loud or dominant, but they were never weak either. They were emotionally in tune, but spiritually grounded. They were loving yet wise. That's the power of balance. A woman of balance understands that there are moments to be gentle and moments to stand firm. She raises her children with love but with structure. She helps others from a place of care, but with limits. She communicates with softness, but doesn't stay quiet when her rights are being violated. Her strength is not in becoming like a man or copying masculine energy. Her strength is in being completely feminine while being deeply grounded in faith and self-worth. In the end, the goal is not to become hard in a hard world, but to remain soft while building the strength to protect that softness. That is the woman who thrives. That is the woman who pleases Allah. In conclusion, dear sisters, Islam does not call you to be a weak, silent, or overly accommodating woman. It calls you to be balanced, gentle in nature, but firm in faith, kind in character, but strong in self-respect. You were never created to please the world at the expense of your soul. You were created to worship Allah, to carry yourself with dignity, and to live a life rooted in truth, courage, and purpose. Stop thinking that patience means letting people harm you. Stop believing that being a good Muslim woman means saying yes to everything. Learn to say no with grace. Set boundaries without guilt, and walk away from what drains your spirit. You are allowed to protect your heart, your peace, and your energy. You are allowed to expect respect. You are allowed to raise your standards. The greatest women in Islamic history were never weak. They were soft, yes, but never soft in a way that allowed others to reduce them. Their softness was powered by tawakkul, taqwa, and a deep understanding of their worth in the sight of Allah. So rise. Be the woman who is pleasing to Allah, not the world. Be soft, but with strength. Be kind, but with wisdom. And above all, never forget who you are, a servant of the Most High, honored and protected by His guidance. May Allah grant every woman the strength to honor herself, the clarity to stand firm in her deen, and the wisdom to balance her softness with strength. Ameen.